What I will do in this 30 minutes is to give you a very brief introduction about citation-based searching. I will share some practical applications, strengths and limitations, and I will give you a very brief demonstration of the CoCites website. And I will not do this in chronological order. They are a little bit mixed, but these 4 topics will be addressed.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is, I shared my disclosure, I shared the program, and I was now here telling you that we developed this from a researcher perspective, and that as a researcher on a daily basis, we face this challenge. So either when we need to find new literature, we can either go to do a database. For us, most of it is Google Scholar, Web of Science, PubMed, so the medical publications. We enter a few keywords, and we know that if we enter only a few keywords, we find some articles. And so we are never certain that what we find is really the most relevant that could be found, or that is really influenced by the keywords that we have chosen. If we really are interested in a more complete search of the article of the literature, then we have to build exhaustive queries, maybe in multiple databases, which is time consuming and requires a lot of expertise that's fair enough that most of us don't have in how to build those queries efficiently. But that is the price we pay to get the complete results. So what we were interested in is whether there could be a method that basically, as a researcher, you enter a few keywords, you find some articles that are relevant, that you could use these articles to find more articles. And that is where CoCites fits in. So CoCites is built on citations, and searching citations to find other relevant articles, that is not a new idea. The idea actually makes a lot of sense, because as researchers, when we write about a topic, we cite articles that are relevant to that topic. And so the articles that we cite in a publication are also related to each other because they relate to the topic. We also know from guidelines on how to conduct systematic reviews and meta-analyses that looking at the citation, so either backwards to the reference list or forward to who's citing those papers, is often recommended as a backup, often as a supplemental strategy to see whether you find more articles. But in that way, it's very inefficient. And there have been multiple studies that basically show that after you do a keyword search, that you may find some articles, but that the precision is very low, so it's very inefficient. But if you look at those studies, they, without an exception, they have looked at screening the direct citations, so the references and the citations of each article one by one, and they only look at the direct citations. So this is our approach, is to look at co-citations. Co-citations are the articles, so if this is your article, are the articles that are cited together with the article that is of interest. And we know already that if articles are cited more frequently together, that article is likely to be more on a similar topic as the one that you're interested in. Well, this principle is not new, and I'm sure you all know about that. It's Henry Small wrote about it already in 1973. So the principle is not new. We use it in a different way than it has ever been used before. So here is an example on how that writes. Suppose that I'm interested, again, from a researcher's perspective, to write a review on exercise in women with gestational diabetes. And so if I do my best guess keyword search, I land on this article about resistance exercise glycemic control in women with gestational diabetes. My question for the review is then, what other articles are published on exercise in women who are pregnant and have diabetes? So when you have downloaded the browser extension for CoCites, and this is our go-to database for medical research, then CoCites embeds a button for each article in that in the database. And here the link says that the article that we just found was cited 58 times. This button is no different than what Web of Science has on the related records and that Scopus has on related documents, but the algorithm behind it, the way how we search these related articles is more efficient and generating more relevant results. I unfortunately cannot get into more detail today, but I'm happy to talk more about the differences between the searches. So this is then, if you go to the CoCites website, so if you click on that link, I should say, then this is where you land. So here is the article about resisted exercise and glycemic control in women with gestational diabetes, cited 58 times. And here you get your list of co-cited articles. CoCites tells you that there are 518 articles that are co-cited more than once. And here they are listed in descending order of their time cited, co-cited frequency. What else you see here is just how frequently each article is cited in this list, the co-citation frequency, and then a kind of similarity score. And this similarity score is basically a relative co-citation index. So it is basically the number of co-cited articles divided by the lowest number of the time cited of the article that you are looking for or the article in the results. Basically with the idea that an article cannot be co-cited more frequently than it has been cited. So this number is 100 if it is cited all the time together with this article. And this index is very handy. You don't see it here so much why it's handy. But it's handy when articles are not cited that frequently. They tend to end lower in this ranking because they cannot be co-cited frequently either, but then they likely have a high similarity score. And I will show you in the demonstration later that the similarity score, you can filter on it to show only articles with a higher similarity score, which picks up articles that have not been cited so frequently. So this is how the CoCites website presents the results. So for this article, I used it also several years ago in my presentations when it was not cited 58 times, but only 22 times. And this is then how the top 25 articles look like. So in top 25, 3 years ago, we found, so all the articles in yellow are interventions in gestational diabetes, but not necessarily exercise. It's only in red, when the word is in red, that it was an exercise intervention. So what we then saw, and we're already pretty impressed by, is that the top ranked co-cited articles are all on interventions in diabetes, and that many of them are also about exercise. But when we look now, when the articles cited 58 times, we see that even more than before, all the articles in the top are about interventions in pregnant women with diabetes, but even more, you see even more red names in here in the titles. About all of them are also about exercise. And this is also what you expect. As I said, we didn't invent co-citation searching. This is what you expect when you have more articles, more citations, how your top ranked results look like. They are all on that same topic as the article that you started the search with. And what we find also, this is a result from our pilot study. So we investigated the performance of CoCites as well. This is a result from our pilot study, that these relationships, that the top ranked articles are across all keywords. And this is, to me, a real strength of co-citation searching, is that because the articles are cited by experts, they know about their topic independent of which exact keywords the researchers use. So that is why this is all about air pollution and childhood cancer. You see that all in white here, it's all childhood cancer, but the variety of keywords that people use to describe their exposure is very, very broad, and that's really a strength of co-citation searching. So what we also found in our pilot studies, that co-citation searching cannot find everything. It finds articles evidently that are cited frequently enough, and these are the type of articles, the non-English publications, conference abstracts, the gray literature. So basically this is the articles that are not cited frequently enough, or that are not in the database, that tend to be missed in co-citation searching. So these first three, we accept that as a shortcoming. That's also when we want to search the literature and we really care about finding everything that there is, that we search in multiple databases, that we search the gray literature if we expect our relevant articles to be there. The lower two we did not expect, because we find if a method cannot find the newer publications that are not cited yet, and therefore not co-cited, or cannot find the older publications that are no longer cited by newer studies, we found that a shortcoming of the method. And for that, we found a solution. So the first three we accept because that's the that's how searching works. It's not one database fits all. It's not one method that fits all, but this problem needs to be solved. And so CoCites, the co-citation searching can not only be applied to one article and then find the co-cited articles, it can also be applied to a set of related articles. So multiple articles, for example, on gestational exercise and gestational diabetes, to find co-cited articles that cite any of these articles here in blue. Not specifically one, because that's not how citation works. If a researcher has the opportunity to choose between several studies on the same topic, they will likely not cite them all, they will just pick one, and they will not always pick the same one. So you can imagine that the search becomes even more efficient and effective when you have a query set of several articles on the same topic to find others that are co-cited. But also when you have a query set like this, you can also use that to find recent articles, because these recent articles that you see here, they may not be cited yet so that they have been co-cited, but when they are relevant to the topic, they may cite multiple articles from that query set. And so here you can see that if your query set is larger, for example, you have 10, 15 articles on exactly the same topic, then you find these recent articles because they cite multiple articles from that query set. And this is how we find newer articles, but also, if you would be interested, older articles, because the early articles in the query sets still might cite the older ones. And that is what we investigated a few years ago in a very large validation study. So what we did was we, in our fields, the gold standard of literature searching is a systematic review or a meta-analysis, because in those searches, the researchers really try, we consider them experts on the topic, and they really try to find all the literature that is for the topic that they find relevant. And we use those studies, those systematic reviews, as our gold standard. So our question was, so in a very large study, we reproduced the literature searches of 250 meta-analysis and reviews. And we said, okay, if we know the two highest cited articles, because these are highest cited, apparently most people know them. If we know of each meta-analysis, the two highest cited, can we find the other articles that are included in the review while screening fewer articles than the authors did? And we screened only articles that were co-cited in more than 1% of the citing articles. And this is a detail that you may need to look up later, but it means basically that if an article was cited 1,000 times, was highly cited, then we screened all articles that were co-cited more than 10 times. And so this is what we found. So this is basically what we did. So here, and this is also how I use CoCites in practice many times. So I started with 2 articles. These were the highest cited of each review, but in general, these are just the articles that you find through a quick and dirty search. You do a co-citation ranking. Here in the study, we then find in the results that are produced by the co-citation search, how many of the articles that are included in the review are in this ranking. And then with this new set, we applied a citation ranking, see whether citation searching could find the more recent articles, and then we added to the query set, and this was basically the percentage of articles that we retrieved. So how good was CoCites? So how well did it perform? So we had 250 systematic reviews, and here below is the reference to the study if you want to read this in more detail. This is the articles, the authors of those articles, they screened about 800 articles. And if we looked at the co-citation search and basically considered the entire co-citation web, so all the articles that are co-cited with the 2 that we started with, we found a median of 75% of the articles. That means that in half of this 250 reviews, we found more than 75% of the articles included. But it was highly inefficient, so we never recommend doing that because those big co-citation webs are enormously large. But if we only screened the top of the articles that were co-cited in more than 1% of the articles, and we performed a citation search, then we got the same results. So we also obtained 75% of the articles included in the review, and we had to screen a little bit more, but maybe equal the same number as the authors did originally. But we have to keep in mind that these reviews, in those reviews, the authors screened multiple databases, and not all the articles that they included in their review were available in PubMed or in Web of Science. We used the Web of Science database for our study. So if we limit our results to those reviews where all articles that were included in the review could be found in PubMed or Web of Science, then basically co-citation searching retrieved almost 90% of the articles included in the review. And in many, so this is this means that 25% of the reviews we found everything. And that means that if your review included 10 articles, on average, we found 9 of them. And the search seems a little bit more inefficient than what the authors did, but we have to keep in mind that our method was not able to remove the duplicates from those 2 searches. But the biggest difference is in the upper range. So what we also found, and maybe you remember that from the literature, that many reviews are being published these days where researchers really do a very, very quick and dirty job screening not too many articles. But if here, what we show here, that is if the researchers did screen many articles, we were way more efficient for that. So we cannot be more efficient when researchers are very efficient, but when they were very inefficient, that's where the benefit of this approach lies. So we find almost everything and can do it more efficient. So this is our summary. So CoCites for us, it really is a very efficient and effective search method if you want to find more articles on the same topic. You need to keep in mind, but this is, I call it here misstudied, but I'm always feel a little bit pain in the heart when I write it because this is a limitation of all searches. Articles that are not in PubMed or not in Web of Science cannot be found when you search in that database. So that's the problem with abstracts, foreign articles, and gray literature. They are just not in the database. Not a shortcoming of the method, but I like to say it to make the story complete. But we find that CoCites is very sensitive. It retrieves almost without exception the major articles on a topic. It's very efficient, especially for fields where there is no uniform terminology. What also makes it very efficient is that you screen the most relevant studies first. So when your mind is still fresh, you are going over, as a researcher, studies that are most relevant first and the less relevant later. The method is very simple. It is not so dependent on the expertise or the experience of the researcher. It is very intuitive and transparent. We can understand why the method is so successful because this is simply how researchers cite papers, and we are basically using their common knowledge to find literature. And it's also reproducible, and this is very important in scientific reporting. If you want to say how you search the literature, you need to be able to document it. And so if you document your query sets and you mention the date, then it means that everybody who searches on that date will get the same results. So this is how we envision that it can be used in searching literature. So if you install the browser extension, you can find the co-cited articles for one article at a time, which is very ideal to see to find other key articles on a topic. So the article that you start with may not be the key article, but by looking at the co-citations, it immediately ranks the most relevant other articles on that topic. And you can find whether there are others that are cited more frequently or maybe larger studies, or so it brings you to the key articles very, very fast. It also gives you suggestions for keywords and experts or reviewers, but that's no different than other methods, and it is very useful. Our students love it because especially students have much difficulty in finding literature. They are not experienced in building those search queries, and if they do a keyword search and find something, they now more easily get to the more relevant literature. By building query sets, that is a very ideal approach for systematic reviews and meta-analysis, for rapid reviews, scoping reviews, and also for review updates. Because if you want to update your review, you can basically enter all the studies that you found or included in your first review, and then basically do a citation search to find all the new articles that cite 2 or more articles from this large query set that you have now. So for systematic reviews and meta-analysis, especially for updating, it is a very handy tool. Also what is very handy is that since last month as our newest edition, also the results can now be easily transferred to Citation Manager software. Also from very recent, that's why we start now. We have basically finalized the very basics of our website. We're starting on working on educational material. If this workshop went too fast, then you can read more about it in these articles. And I see that there is a question about foreign articles. Does that mean not published in English? Yes, that means not published in English. And that is simply because what we cannot read, we cannot cite. And so even if the article is very relevant in a different language, it doesn't get cited because people cannot read what they cite. There come a few questions on the chat inside, but I would like to give you a very brief tour. If you have any questions after this talk, please let me know. Here's my email address, and if you want to have a workshop like this or a little bit more quiet, more time, let me know. I'm more than willing to share with you more about this. Let's see whether this works. The CoCites website is still a very basic website because it only offers the two tools at this moment to do those searches. Here's some introduction, but if you register on the website, registration is free, but you need to claim your space there. Then you have your My CoCites page where you can do a new search. You can either do a new search in CoCites itself, that just opens it, search fields there. You can upload a list of PubMed ideas. If you immediately have a query set, a set of related articles, and you know the PubMed ideas, you can upload them here to build a query set, or you can go to PubMed. And the reason why it's now only available for PubMed is because this is our first version of CoCites, and the NIH database is behind it. So we would like to apply this method also to other databases, but so far this is where we started. What you see here are saved searches, and here you can these are my personal interest, but here is the recent reviews for Cochrane reviews that we investigated how easily we can update Cochrane reviews. And this is a search that I worked on last night about pre-registration of scientific analysis. And what I want to show here is how your query set looks like. So here you have the articles that I've added to the query sets. They all are about pre-registration. You see here how frequently they are cited, and for each of them, you can check their references. And this is ideal if you would like to, that's not here the case, but if you would like to update a review. So if this article were a systematic review and you would like to update that review, you can click on the references, select all the references, and then run this citation search immediately on the references. I'm not going to do that here. Then here are a few search options, and this likely saves a few minutes for time for questions. Let me not go here into detail, but what I would like to show you is that even though when I have only 5 articles, that also a citation search. Oh no, I should not do the site. I don't want. Okay, I would like to have this. I would like to show you the results. That even if I have a set with only 5 articles, that it is very efficient in finding. So that my articles were about irreproducibility of research, that also with 5 articles, you are finding all kind of articles exactly on that same topic. So you do not need 20 articles in your data sets. They do not need to be cited 1,000 times each. These are articles that are not yet cited themselves. They are recently published, but because they cite articles from this query set, we retrieve them. And that is, I think, and then you can add them to the query set here by simply clicking them and then selecting them to the query set. And this is essentially how CoCites works. This was my short introduction. It went very fast, it was 30 minutes. I'm happy to do it on other times a bit more slower, but I hope you got a good idea of what the method can and cannot do. Thank you for your attention.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So I think there are a couple of questions coming in. So I'm going to hand over to Catherine to moderate those. Catherine, you ready?
Right, yes. We'll all talk quickly, I think. I have, you've answered the question about foreign articles, thank you very much.
Yeah.
The next question that's come in is, it's a web extension and it's usable with PubMed and Web of Science. Does it work with Google and Microsoft Academic?
So the browser extension works with PubMed and with Google Scholar, but in Google Scholar it will only flag the articles that are in the NIH database. So you either get this gray button, that means it's not in the database, or you get a blue button and then it tells you it's in the database. I mentioned Web of Science is because they were the database that we used for our scientific study. So at this moment, we don't have this button embedded in Web of Science, but it is on our list, and also for Scopus to add that next.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question, which thanks you very much for your exciting and interesting presentation. Could you tell me more about the difference between your algorithm and the ones of Web of Science and Scopus? Big question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I must very honestly, please reach out to me. I forgot the one behind Scopus, but I do know which one is behind the Web of Science. And that is the one that Web of Science only checks, wait a minute, let me go back quickly. The overlap in the references. So articles are ranking high when they have a lot of overlap with the reference list of the article in the results. And that is very limited because then by definition, you favor reviews, you favor articles with long reference lists. And that is a very inefficient, especially these days, there are many journals who restrict the references to 20 or 30 references, that all those factors really hamper the effectiveness of that algorithm. So basically they look at, I'm sure you know about it, bibliographic coupling, the degree of overlap in the reference list. And so this algorithm is much more powerful because you use what I'm saying here, you use the expert knowledge of the people who cite them. So it's people like researchers like me tell you these articles are related. And if you have many of them, so of multiple, I just showed that it does not need to be hundreds. If you have already 20, you get a very powerful co-citation ranking.
Thank you very much. The next question is, how does CoCites handle retracted articles? How does that affect the reproducibility of the search?
If you retract articles, okay, highly cited retract. No, CoCites does not select anything at all. So the only thing it is, as a scientist, you still have to do the reviewing yourself. You still have to find out if the article is retracted. CoCites does not flag that at all. And that's also, maybe strangely enough, but that's also how we prefer it. We have this method augments, the work of scientists, not replace it. So we are not going to do any screening or any weighing of factors. We would like to, as a scientist, I would like to see the results and then decide myself what's relevant and what's not relevant. And if articles are retracted, and hopefully then the title says retracted, then it's up to me to decide I ignore that or I still want to see it.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why I find it, so it's not to replace the work of scientists. As a scientist, you still need, because every scientific topic is slightly different. And as a scientist, I would like to judge myself what is relevant and not. And so, but I would like to see the most relevant, the most frequently co-cited articles on top.
Okay, fine, thank you. And I think that is a separate question, well, another question we'd had, which was how does it deal with highly cited retracted articles? But I think you've basically covered that.
Yeah, we've actually come to 3:31, so need to draw this particular session to a close.